and welcome back, subscribers. Today, I'm going to talk about my art journey, from 2013 to now. Back in middle school and high school, I was that quiet kid who loved to draw anime. Didn't matter if I was in the middle of class or if I was at home. If I could draw it, I would. I saw tutorials on how to do this in art books at my local craft store, and I tried to replicate as much as I could when I started discovering YouTube. I stuck to doing comics, and this was before I had discovered that there was a lot of open fandoms for crack ships, anime, furries, LGBT community, so I didn't really understand a lot of this, but was happy to still be able to draw such a wide array of things that I was discovering. During high school, I also had a hatred for my art classes and art teacher problems that made me frustrated. The two that I had was actually to do with how we would copy from famous artists and how we would reference still lifes and others around us for portraits or other things. The copy method that we had learned I didn't like because of the way that it was kind of flawed in my opinion. Imagine that you are shown 3 fully finished products. One's oil painted, one's digital, and one is a sculpture. Now imagine you're told you have to replicate all of that with just pencils, acrylic, and Play-Doh. Those mediums don't match. You can try to use the techniques, but you're using the wrong tools, and sometimes even it doesn't matter what tools you're using, you can still try and succeed to a certain degree, but it'll never be the same as what you're seeing on the, final product of the master before you of the final piece. That was what made me discouraged and think, well, I'm never going to be as good as this artist. Rabbit hole that I went down and plunged down every time I would try to draw something, and I thought I can never replicate them. So, when I had tried to do the draw this in that person's style challenge, or draw it in my own style, I struggled with realizing what was even my style because I was so heavily focused on adapting to someone else's style that I couldn't branch out to my own for quite some time because the self-consciousness of it had to look like something else that already existed. This also went for when I would reference and try to draw something realistic, when I would use graphite pencils to try to draw a still life or a person. I didn't understand the difference of the lighting because we had those crappy fluorescent lights above us, as well as open windows and lamps for light sources. We would try to draw spheres and cubes and skulls and people, and I couldn't really understand. I also didn't get taught the difference when they would tell us to crumple up a piece of paper or a piece of fabric and explain that we had to draw them based on what it was. Like drawing a piece of paper versus leather is 2 completely different textures that you had to apply. So after a while I thought, well, what about this digital art medium that I've been hearing about? I was too poor to afford a super fancy Cintiq tablet, but I could afford their smaller $80 tablet. So, with my finger as a stylus initially, and then eventually the Wacom tablet, I tried to draw with my computer my first piece of fan art. I thought if I tried the grid system, I could learn the proportions better, so I thought lining it up would be good. Then I fiddled around with it, and I overlaid the image underneath it to think, oh, that looks pretty good. Told that it was just tracing, even though I did the lining up after. Trying to explain that I did a grid-by-grid method was really difficult. When I was told that, I had to understand myself that I was doing this and that only me admitting to it would help me to learn from my mistakes and get better. Super confusing for me, but now I understand that, no, I knew the methods that I was using, I was just really bad at articulating the process because I still barely understood since I was self-taught. Something that I also learned was the amount that I show to friends, and specific friends. A lot of the friends that I would share the artwork with initially, I was so happy with. I didn't really pay too much attention to the signs that I might be sharing the artwork with someone who is not interested or engaged with my artwork. What I mean by this is I'd show them something and they would immediately jump to criticisms. How to fix it, how to better it, or how they would draw it. Same thing with also if I would try to use the techniques that they were teaching me, didn't work for me, they would be mad, being like, well, you never took any of my art advice, so why should I bother? Anything that I say, you don't take the advice good or bad. Which made me kind of scared because I thought that they didn't think I was taking them seriously. Same thing with if I told someone like, hey, I just learned how to render, and then they're like, well, yeah, I told you that months ago. It took you till now to, learn that. It felt so discouraging, and I hope that no other new up-and-coming artists have to go through such a thing. You can choose who you share your art to, and it's not a bad thing. But take the advice of those who are genuinely trying to help you improve. Over time, I had worked on a lot of art styles and practices, and I was constantly told that I should look up to these other artists by saying, well, hey, have you checked out this Cuphead style? Have you checked out this Disney style? Have you checked out this famous artist's style? Maybe you can learn a thing or two from them. Repeats the cycle back to middle school and high school, where yes, I can learn from some of them, but taking bits and pieces of it turns my artwork into a Frankenstein of a mess because it's not my own. Sure, I'm using tools that I had seen another artist use, but I'm using my own technique to make it my own original piece. And trying to live up to so many people's expectations changed my characters. I lost that feeling and purpose and drive and point to why I was even making a lot of these in the first place. So I took the wheel back from other people's hands and went down my path and started realizing that I can draw whatever the heck I want to because I have the option to do it, but that freedom artistic power also came with responsibility that I had to maintain. At the start of 2020, I started taking things more seriously, realizing that I wanted to create a portfolio. I needed to make connections, collaborations. I wanted to make more fan art, more of my original pieces, possible tutorials, and just have a fun and safe space for my community to communicate with me. I don't want to be seen as an artist who you feel like you can't ask me questions. I don't care if you ask me for the 100th time, what art tablet do you use, are your commissions and requests open, all of these things I am more than happy to answer. And that's something I feel like is slowly dwindling for the art community and artists out there because it's almost like a lock and key that you have to keep everything secret. Yes, there are some things that I won't be able to mention because I want to be able to have, for those who want to dig deeper to asking those questions, I don't want it to all be thrown out there at once and be, something boring. I want there to be something that would have you guys engaged in returning, but also not that I'm such a closed-off artist that you can't ask me anything. And I'm proud to say that despite everything, I have not given up and do not ever plan to give up, because that would mean that everybody who had doubts in me would be right, and I want to prove them wrong, and I want to thank everybody who has supported me in my journey up to this point in my life. And the fact of the matter is, I'm only one person, and I can only go so far with that reach. If you guys help support me, that greatly improves the reach that this channel and everything that I make can reach to new audience members who might also enjoy this content. And remember, support those who are supporting you, and you can go very far. Stay possum, check out some of my other videos if you like this, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye!